Please welcome our final keynote, Marcella Wartenberg, CEO of AWWG, who'll be interviewed by Kirsty McGregor, Executive European Editor for Vogue Business.
We have a race against the clock because we have a short amount of time to talk about everything you're doing at AWWG. We're going to do our best to fit everything in. It's a time of incredible transformation in the fashion industry. You know, so many companies are having to really rethink their entire models. The pace of change in terms of technological innovation is just neck-breaking, as of course we've been talking about over the last couple of days at Shop Talk. So let's start with where you're at now with AWWG's strategy. You've been going through a process of transformation, right? So you've been taking the company from an analog mindset into more of a digital-first mindset. Tell us about that.
So yes, 4 years ago, we started with a whole transformation. The company, a lot of the fashion industry has been very analog for many years. It's a creative industry, so it's very difficult, the digitalization about it. So we started that journey a couple of years ago, but it started by changing the mindset. We need to create digital as part of our culture. And when I talk about digital, it's not only about e-commerce, it's everything we do. It's the smartification of our process. It goes from the way that we come to work, the way we connect, the way that we do our product. And I need to say, today I would consider that our platform is very digital. The people are always looking how to evolve that digital, because digital is not that you have it and it's done. That is the thing that once you start with the digitalization, you need to continue evolving and evolving. But the first thing I will tell everyone is that to do a digital transformation, the leader needs to believe in digital. Mm-hmm. I'm a pro-digital. And the second one is you need to embed it in all the organization. You cannot just say it's one team that does digital and all the rest no. So leadership and changing the culture all around.
Okay, and so the learnings are what? That you've moved away from having that more of that siloed approach to bringing it across the whole organization.
So we created a lot of platforms, indeed. We have 3 brands that we own, so Fashionable, Hackett, and Pepe Jeans. Global brands, so everybody was working in silo, everybody doing their little thing. So the first thing we said is we need to start creating best practices, and we centralize a lot of the best practices, almost like we became like a transformation for the rest. And then the very brand things like marketing and product and design remain totally owned, separate. So it's an interesting thing. You need to change people to share the best out of it.
And so we are where we are now,
yes.
But how are you going to evolve that strategy for the next sort of 3 to 5 years? What have you got your focus on?
So it's very interesting what you're asking, because today we can have long-term visions, but we can only have mid-term projects and very short view.
Yeah.
So in the long term, I would say digital will continue to be one of our North Stars. We need to continue evolving on social media, on e-commerce, in all our processes. That means from PLM to DAM to PIM to all the systems that you can imagine. Connecting by social, remote work, all these kind of things. So the vision is that digital continue to be the center next to our customers. So the way to be digital is that you cannot think about yourself. You need to think, what's the consumer wanting? What's the expectation of the consumer when you talk about digital? Because we can talk a lot about digital, but the end consumer is what you want. Because all the companies what want is to sell more. So is the consumer ready to have all that amount of digitalization or not? Or what are the expectations? So are they expecting to have avatars as models? Yes or no? Are they open to have designs that are just done by AI and not real pictures? So it goes all that, and we are testing a lot of these things. And we see that in Gen Z is much more open to accept some of these things compared to a baby boomer.
What about, because obviously you have a huge international footprint, what about regionally? Are you seeing big differences in how the consumer is behaving and how ready they are for that kind of digital first approach?
Absolutely. Look, we are Today, we're in 80 countries. We ship from our own e-commerce to 26 countries directly. And there's a very big shift. So for example, we see that in the northern countries, there's a huge rate of returns. We are having returns of over 60% on the product.
Right.
Why? The people orders a lot and they return a lot. If you look at the southern countries, the return rate is half of the north. Why? Because people will go more to the stores, they understand more the product. So it's very different. We see also in the southern countries like Spain, Italy, France, people loves to go to the store to do the check, and then they go home to order it. So it's an omni-channel or a seamless experience. In the northern countries, what we see is they don't even go to the store. They rather do window browsing in our e-commerce, and then they buy 3 of the same similar styles, and then they return 2 of the 3.
So I'm curious to know, is there anything you can do about that? Can you try to encourage different behavior? Because that bracketing, as we call it, of ordering several sizes, that's a big problem for the industry and for sustainability.
So there's 2 things we're trying to do. One is we need to be much more conscious to our consumers about CO2 emissions, about sustainability, because every e-commerce package is not only the CO2 emissions of shipping, it's about packaging, it's about all the paper, the plastic, all that. But I think it starts by how we communicate in digital. So one of the big things that the team has as a big mandate and a big homework is we need to be much more clear in our sizing, in our translations, on explaining the product. Is the picture good enough for the people to understand the difference between one polo and the other polo, between one sweater and the other sweater? It's very important how we translate languages. So I think we're using AI now for translations, sizing. We are doing some testing on how can we recommend the perfect sizing for the people. Mm-hmm. These are the things where I think that people will be much more confident to order less and order their size. And I will encourage everyone, I think that's what we need to do. We as companies, we need to invest in tools that will make the consumer journey easier.
Can you share any more detail on how that sizing works?
Yes, so normally you have, the first thing starts by what fit do you have, slim fit or regular fit?
Yep.
And the consumer should be able to ask what they want. Do you want to have a looser fit or do you want something slimmer? So they should answer that. After answering that question, they should say, okay, what are your measurements? Do you like this? And the tables, the artificial intelligence algorithm needs to start matching what will be the best shirt for that man or what will be the best dress for that woman. And it works. Of course, there's still a lot of data. The more data is in, the better it's going to work. So we are starting to test all that, and we see that whatever we are doing the styles with better explanation, and where we have much more transparency on the right fit and all that, we have much less returns.
Of course, yeah.
It's consistency.
And so we've naturally started talking about AI, and I definitely want to focus on that. Obviously, we can't avoid it. And we'll come to talk about the kind of marketing strategy behind the brands, because I think these are 2 ways that I can see that you have the potential to future-proof the brands, right? And so with AI innovation, let's start, first of all, let's take a step back. What's your kind of take on AI in the industry? Because in fashion, there's huge possibilities there, right? You can see the potential. It's already transforming the industry, particularly generative AI in the last 18 months is doing, people are doing amazing things with it. There's also an element of wariness, particularly, I think, from creatives that are worried about, understandably worried that this is going to we're going to be using AI to create all of the marketing campaigns and copy and then start designing. And then actually, where does the human creative input come into play? What's your kind of position on it? You said before you're quite kind of pro-tech, so
okay,
I can guess.
I'm pro-AI, so I think it goes that AI, it's a tool. It should make our jobs easier, but it's not going to have the final saying. I think in the fashion industry, emotions are going to be very important, and curation is going to be even more important. AI cannot do that emotional curation that a human being can do. Mm-hmm. So when I tell the team, I say, AI is there to facilitate. It's almost your assistant. So I will put some examples we are doing in AI. First, mood boards. When they are trying to tell me, this delivery is going to be about the sunshine in the cliffs of Ireland. If I see a picture, you can project yourself, how is that going to look?
Yeah.
So they can do with AI, they can create mood boards. If we want to do a marketing campaign, they can create a mood board of the marketing campaign. If I say, okay, I will put an example, let's do red dresses. AI can develop, and there's great systems to design 20 red dresses. But doesn't mean that you will take one exactly. You will curate, and then a proper designer will take all these dresses to be the inspiration, and maybe takes the sleeves of one dress, takes the body of the other dress, and starts to do their own. It's like a Lego. I always put, there's two ways to do Lego. The one that you follow the instructions, or now that they're very creative Lego builders, they take all the Lego pieces and they build their own without instructions.
Sure.
So let's imagine that. AI should be the one that give you all the ideas. It's like little Legos, and then you do your big piece. We see in AI, for example, using AI in design, that we have reduced 30% the cancellation rate of collections.
Okay.
Because people can understand what you're trying to tell them on a much earlier stage. If you cancel you can design much more, you can do selection, and you don't need to make prototypes, you don't need to do samples. This helps a lot for the sustainability circle. It also gives a lot of confidence for the people, because when you have a wholesale, retail, e-commerce business, everyone is saying, okay, but how is going to look the dress? With AI, you can do a lot of simulations to understand how that dress is going to flow. So if you combine AI with 3D design, you can really see how the dress is going to move. How's the drape going to work? So that, for example, it's a good way to use AI, 30% reduction. Another very interesting that I love people to use it is everything to do with everything about announcements, writing, all that, because many, many years ago, maybe we were not there, but many of our parents, they used to have an assistant, and they would say, do me a letter about this, and the assistant would go and write it. Our generation, we were doing it. Like every email, every announcement, I do it myself.
Yeah.
What happens now is that it's very easy. You have one of these tools of AI. You can tell them, can you help me to write an announcement about a promotion? They write it, and then the interesting part is the emotion. AI cannot put my emotions, cannot put Marcela words. So then I take that, it's like having an assistant, and then it helps me to save at least 50 to 60% of my time writing an announcement. Translations, another one. So I think there's a lot of opportunities with AI.
And that's what it comes back down to, isn't it? You want it to do all the things that you don't want to spend your time doing, so you have the time to spend on the creative, the fun parts of the job, so if you can unleash that. But also AI is so important when it comes to creating efficiency in the supply chain as well, isn't it? Are there any other kind of use cases you could talk to?
Yes, for example, customer service.
Yeah.
I think it's very nice to use AI for the first, I would say, filter of customer service. At the end, I really believe that the human being should be there to solve the emotional part of, hey, I didn't like the product, the quality was not good, or, I couldn't find this style. But I would say there's a big part that AI can solve for you in a very nice tone of voice. I think it's very important that we educate AI to have the tone of voice of the brand, the tone of voice of yourself. But it helps a lot for the efficiency. And now customer service people can really spend much more time on flattering the consumer, talking to the consumer and not rushing for things. Forecasting. We're already starting to test some things about future forecast on inventories, one of the big problems we have today. That's more traditional AI, but we are trying now to mix that with generative AI. And simulations on product. So I think the traditional AI and generative AI are very close to each other. So that's something that we need to say, where are we breaching towards generative?
Yeah. I mean, this is for me where it becomes really exciting when you start to talk about forecasting, because if we can nail that in fashion, then it solves a huge number of problems that the industry is facing. I want to move on to talk about the the sort of strategies around the different brands, because obviously a big part of your role is future-proofing these amazing, iconic brands that have quite a heritage, each one of them. They're all quite different, and they have different consumer groups. Tell me about kind of what are the fastest growing kind of marketing channels for the different brands, and then maybe we can dive into a little bit about what you're doing to sort of evolve their identities.
You know that this question could take me half an hour trying to explain it.
You've
So
got 3
I'll
minutes,
try,
maybe.
3 minutes. So I will try to. So it's very interesting. If we think about Pepe jeans, the consumer is totally different. It's millennial and Gen Z.
Yeah.
They want to have as much information as they can in digital. Digital is their window for the brands. So when I talk digital, e-commerce is very, very important. Maybe not for transaction, but just to promote the brand and the product. And the second one is social media. Everything to do with the brand in Gen Z and millennials, you need to be in digital everywhere now. They need to learn how to filter, they get bombarded, but they also want to have the offline experience. When you go to Hackett, it's a much older consumer, it's 45 plus. I would say that they have much less interest on digital.
Okay.
They look, for example, in Instagram, they look more to the feeds and the posts more than really the reels. In Pepe, reels are very important. You know, it's the way they behave. However, newsletters. In Pepe, we need to send a lot of newsletters. They like to know what's happening. They want to see, so we need to send maybe 2 to 3 newsletters a week.
And is that new styles, or
New
is it more
styles, new
content-led?
in. Can be content. We can talk about the perfect fit. Then the next one can be about new in. The next one we could talk about prepare for the summer, about beachwear.
So kind of expecting that quite constant.
Yes, and it's a lot about buy now, wear now. So what is the moment of the consumer? There's a festival in Germany, we need to say, you look for the festival. So it's very reactive. In Hackett, it's totally different. The less is more. Too many newsletters, the open rate is not good. We see that we almost have the same open rate with 3 newsletters than with 2. But they want more quality, and they want to be much more specific. So we need to talk a lot about craftsmanship, about details, about something that is new, and they are not so emotional of buy now, wear now. And in Pepe, it's emotion. It's all about emotions. So we need to understand that in each of the brands that we handle, and I will say that to everyone, it goes for clothing, for food, it goes for hotels, for everything. You need to think what's your consumer target. One formula doesn't work for everyone. That we see it ourselves. It's very important that you start customizing, personalizing the way you communicate digitally to each of these consumers.
So then how do you approach looking at the future strategy, how you future-proof brands? There's that kind of age-old question of, ironic, of if you have a brand that sort of appeals to a slightly older consumer group, then, you know, as they age, do you start to look at how you bring younger consumers in without alienating them? It's always quite a kind of a tricky balance to strike. So how are you approaching that?
So it's funny, I came with these 3 words that my people knows, but we have who are our loyals. Like, this is the consumer base that want. Let's imagine we have a brand that our age group is 45 to 55, Hackett, okay? Then we have the aspirationals that you should always try to go 10 years younger. And you need to start building for them. But they are not gonna be more than 20% of your consumers at that moment. But you need to start building to be top of mind. So when they reach the income or the lifestyle or the needs of the Hackett product, they will move towards Hackett. But you cannot start when they're 45 because somebody else already took them. And then you have the nostalgics. The nostalgics are the ones that already fall out of your core business, but they are still hoping to buy product from you. Same happens with Pepe. With Pepe, we always say it's the 30s. But that doesn't mean I don't start tackling the 20s. And I think there's some customers that are 50s that they still buy Pepe. So is there something wrong? No, but you need to be very, very loyal to your loyals and start building the aspirationals. You cannot wait. You need to, but you need to balance the spend, investment. I spend more money in the loyals, but I always have a certain percentage, 20 to 30%, building the aspirational ones.
Very final thought. We're seeing a lot of upheaval in the wholesale market at the moment, so it is a really challenging time to be a fashion brand. Multi-brand wholesale is facing challenges. What's your kind of view on where the industry is headed? Can you give us a reason to be cheerful, I suppose?
My vision, fashion will always exist, because as soon as human beings exist, emotions will exist and fashion will exist. Everyone will remember what they wore when they met the love of their life. Everybody remembers what they wore for a great concert. Everybody knows what they wore for a wedding. People will forget maybe what they ate, but they will not forget what they were wearing. So fashion will always exist. I think it's going to be very important that when people tell me, is offline dead? No, offline is not dead, because people still, fashion you want to touch, you want to try. I think it's more about being present. You need as much digital than non-digital. I always say, you need to have the circle. They tell me wholesale is dead. No, wholesale is not dead. They just need to evolve. We all need to evolve. Humans are evolving. Pure players is a great way how a lot of these wholesale are moving. Their marketplaces are also helping them to be more. It's more about how they look into the stores. I don't think it's dead. I think actually there is going to be a comeback of offline as well, because the digital is calling people to go back and try it. I think digital should be the window, and I'm saying this to everyone, should be the window to attract consumers to come into wholesale and retail. Digital is the best way to showcase your product, your brand, your DNA, your vision, and then make sure that those values that you have there, they can see them offline.
And that's it. We're out of time. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much.